brave warriors of the Principality of Gihren. Today, let's take a closer look at Gihren Zabi, one of the most important figures in the Universal Century series. His ideas and actions have had a huge influence on later parts of the series. Gihren has also left his mark on many alternative series. By analyzing him, we'll be able to enjoy the Gundam series on a much deeper level. There is a lot of information about him, and it is extremely complex. That's why I'd like to divide this program into several episodes to properly analyze him. This time, the topic is why Gihren carried out the operation to drop a space colony onto Earth. The colony drop was one of the biggest incidents in the Universal Century series. So why did Gihren commit such an act, which caused enormous damage and claimed countless lives? But before we dive into the main topic, let me make a quick announcement. On my channel, I'm inviting support through memberships. For just 99 cents a month, you can get a name badge and special perks for your comments. Now then, let's begin the analysis. In this episode, we'll be focusing on the worldview created by Mr. Yoshiyuki Tomino. The Universal Century series is renowned for its intricate settings, which are a significant part of its appeal. However, the official settings from Sunrise and Bandai sometimes differ from those envisioned by Mr. Tomino. On top of that, there are also things like initial drafts. Even within these drafts, certain parts were used in the actual story. For now, let's analyze this based on the reason behind the colony drop operation as envisioned by Mr. Tomino. It is helpful to consider it as one possible interpretation within the context of history. So, why do you think Gihren Zabi carried out the colony drop operation? Was it in retaliation for the discrimination and exclusion faced by space immigrants at the hands of the Earth's Federation government? Strike back at the Earth's Federation with the symbolic building of the space colonies forced upon the weak, and the frustrations of space immigrants become a tangible phenomenon. Undoubtedly, there were Gihren soldiers who acted with that mindset. Therefore, this interpretation is not necessarily incorrect. Or was it to destroy Joburo, the Earth's Federation's headquarters, and bring the war to an end on favorable terms? By destroying Joburo, the Federation's strongest base, with a colony drop, one could ensure the war ended on favorable terms. Gihren Zabi, who appeared in the 08MS team, acted based on this interpretation. The mobile armor Apsaurus was designed to attack the Federation's headquarters. However, Gihren Zabi's way of thinking was slightly different. In order to understand Giren's thinking, we need to analyze the operations connected to the colony drop. This battle would later be remembered in history as the 1-week war. It was an attack on the space colonies launched by the Gihren forces just 3 seconds after they declared war. The Gihren forces began attacking the colony clusters of size 1, 2, and 4. They also attacked the Earth's Federation patrol fleets orbiting Earth. Additionally, the forces under the command of Gihren Zabi seized the lunar city of Granada. As part of this operation, Gihren carried out the horrific act of injecting poison gas into the colonies and massacring their inhabitants. Why was such an inhumane operation carried out? It was so brutal that even the Gihren soldiers who carried it out were left deeply scarred. Was it intended as a warning to colonies that refused to cooperate with the Principality of Gihren? Of course, there are sources that describe such reasoning. However, that was not the only reason, nor even the main one. The main reason was that the Principality of Gihren was far weaker than the Earth's Federation. To win against such a much larger government, Gihren needed simple yet effective operations that could be carried out extremely quickly. As previously mentioned, Gihren forces launched simultaneous attacks on multiple, widely scattered targets including several colony clusters, a lunar city and Federation patrol fleets in Earth's orbit. Spreading out one's forces is an extremely risky move. In many works of fiction including Gundam, it is often said that dividing your forces is a mistake. However, Gihren took steps to compensate for this weakness in his plan. He used poison gas in the colonies. This is described in the first volume of the novel, written by Mr. Tomino. The colony clusters, or sites, were made up of about 40 colonies. Each site housed roughly 1 billion people. Gihren's fleets attempted to annihilate them all. This would have resulted in the deaths of around 4 billion people. The method was far too simple. Because it was so straightforward, the Gihren forces were able to accomplish it. By choosing such a simple method of attack, Gihren succeeded in his operation. If they had chosen a more complicated method of taking control of the colony and forcibly evicting the inhabitants, it would not have been possible to carry out the operation in such a short time. Due to its simplicity, Gihren was able to complete the entire process in approximately 20 hours from the start of the operation. Colony residents were massacred with poison gas. For space colonies, which are sealed environments, this was the most terrifying method of attack. Gihren chose this method precisely because the citizens of the Principality of Gihren were themselves space immigrants and would never have conceived of it under normal circumstances. Then after this operation, the colony drop operation was launched. Was the Earth's Federation government consumed by rage towards the Principality of Gihren following the deaths of around 4 billion people? Surprisingly, that was not the case. Let's take a look at what the first volume of the novel has to say on the matter. The Earth's Federation government chose total resistance when they learned of the colony drop operation, which began right after the gas attack. The reason was not the loss of 4 billion lives. This is the strangeness of human beings. That's how it's described. In previous programs, I have also discussed how the Earth's Federation government belittled and discriminated against space immigrants. One of the clearest examples of this attitude can be found in Tomino's own writing. Even though 4 billion lives were lost, the Federation dismissed them as merely the lives of space immigrants. It was only when they realized that they themselves were in danger that they decided to fight to the end. Now, by understanding this, we can grasp Gihren's reason for carrying out the colony drop. This is also written in the novel. It builds on an earlier passage. Tomino's writing often features difficult phrasing, but we will translate it as faithfully as possible. Here it is. However, Gihren and Kisilia of the Zabi family experienced this strangeness too. They did not believe that true victory in war could be achieved through the mass slaughter of people using gas. They believed that it was necessary to crush space colonies into major cities, unearth and crush them in order to instill fear in the elites living there. Human beings understand war through physical phenomena. The people of the Earth's Federation did not interpret the deaths of 4 billion people in distant colonies as something that concerned them. But once they realized that a space colony would be dropped onto Earth, they felt it was something that directly concerned them. Gihren carried out the colony drop operation to make the people of the Earth Federation realize that they were participants in the war. The aim was to bring the Earth Federation government to the negotiating table on equal terms by making them feel like they were a party to the negotiations. So, have you noticed? Gihren's goal was to drop a space colony on major cities on Earth in order to make the people of the Earth Federation government feel involved in still fair and secure victory in the war. Nowhere in this passage is there any mention of destroying Joburo, the Earth Federation's headquarters. History tells us that the colony drop operation failed due to the Earth Federation forces' desperate resistance. The Universal Century Annie explains it in the same way. However, Gihren never expected the operation to drop a colony onto Joburo to succeed. The operations that began after the declaration of war were simple, yet effective. Thanks to Gihren's brilliant strategy, Xion was able to achieve victory. Gihren is described in many sources as a man with a genius-level intellect. It seems somewhat implausible that someone with such an exceptional intellect could misjudge the Federation's military strength. However, if we consider that Gihren's true objective was to drop a colony on Earth's major cities, a new interpretation emerges. In other words, Gihren had already anticipated that the colony would be destroyed in midair by the Earth Federation's resistance, and he planned the operation with this outcome in mind. Gihren chose the colony drop operation to make the people of the Earth Federation government aware that they were participants in the war and to secure favorable terms for ending the war. He also clearly understood that Xion forces could never completely annihilate the Earth Federation forces as an organization. As I mentioned at the beginning, today's discussion is based on the Universal Century world as envisioned by Mr. Tomino. However, it is undoubtedly a very important perspective for understanding much of the Universal Century series. I plan to continue making more episodes analyzing Gihren Zabi. Thank you for watching until the end. See you again in the next program.